Starts off, Carter.
And welcome back to the Carter Saws Himself in Half show. I'm Carter.
I'm here to watch it, so I can say I saw it
Yes.
happen.
Yeah, it's good to have eyewitnesses for these things. I'm going to split myself perfectly in half. Wink. So here we go. As you guys know, I use a cartoon, really long saw, one of the ones that you like wiggle and it makes like a woo sound. The kind of thing you would see with like when Bugs Bunny fucks with a lumberjack or something. So yeah, I just place it on myself. Okay. Ooh, yep, there it is. It's just pointing right into my kidney. Ooh, that smarts. Okay, here we go. Oh
Oh my
man.
god, he's doing it. He's sawing
Oh
himself in
man.
half.
Almost to the spine. That's the hard part. We all know that's the hard part. Great vocally mocally. I could really use a smokely for this. All right.
Uh,
Almost through the other side. There we go.
it's so
And
inhumane.
perfectly in half. But actually, welcome to Carter and Kevin Explain Football. I'm Carter.
How did you do that?
Uh, the power of the theater.
All right.
Isn't it? What a wild. I don't know. I'm just thinking about that. Well, just sawing yourself in half. Like, why is that one of the bits we went to start with, like, magicians and stuff?
Like, why is that? I feel like it's such a classic bit because it's that like right amount of like illusion and people people have perfected making it look realistic yet fake at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right. It's a good balance of like old timey stuff. Right.
yeah.
It's like like it has the energy of like a twirling mustached villain tying a lady to a train. Like it has like a dame in a pretty outfit. It has you can do like catchphrases and like I guess it makes sense. I just want to meet the guy who first thought of it. Of like this is what
Yeah.
my magical act will be. Whoever was working with like P.T. Barnum at the time.
Yeah, especially the fact of like they just made it happen. Anyway,
Right. Do you think they tried to do it for real first, and then like after like 7 women died, and like a lot of crooked 1800s politicians had to be paid off? They're like, well, what if we stuff her into a smaller box, and then have someone else stuffed into another box? Yeah. Oh, damn. We should have thought of that before we killed all those people. Man,
I feel like there
feels
was
so obvious now.
I feel like there's inspiration through surgeries at the time where it's just like, all right, here's some chloroform. All right.
Oh God.
Yeah.
What were we doing today? Oh,
So
Jesus.
anyway, Carter,
It's
we
the
were talking about sawing things in half. Why are you mentioning halves so much?
because this is the official halfway spectacular.
Yeah, because we're
Ooh.
accounting for some playoff time too.
Right, that's what we're gonna say. Not that our schedule was chaos.
Yep, we're always
Yep.
right, according to us.
Yes. Well, I guess to like kick it off, then. It's been we're on the halfway stretch. It's been a weird. It's been a weird football year. I guess like overall, like broad thoughts about where we've gone this year and where we've been going. How do you feel about this football season so far?
I'm a fan. Obviously, team's doing good, so that's going to be a
Always
plus.
helps.
But I've noticed the last like there has been some high quality games this season and high quality
Mhm.
weeks.
I
Like
would agree with that.
I feel like I mean obviously the losers suck, but I feel like the winners make like the winners in the close games are making it. It's like yeah no this is like they're really showing off their contracts this league.
Yes. I would agree with that. I would definitely say this year is a great one in terms of like I would say this has been a great year in terms of like the sort of these staple teams, sort of like the money makers for the league. Like the teams that had a lot of hype, with a handful of notable exceptions, which we'll get to, have largely delivered. Like okay, have the Chiefs been necessarily the sexiest team?
No.
No, but they've been winning a lot.
Yes.
Like, they find a way to win no matter what.
A lot. Some
A
would say 9
frustrating amount.
games.
Yes, 9 games. A frustrating amount of wins, as a matter of fact. But yeah, they've been winning. The Bills keep finding ways to win in new, spectacular ways. The Lions have just been basically doing like side quests and achievements for the back half of this year. Like, as a fantasy owner of Lions stock, thank fuck Dan Campbell's decided this is the year he's just going to run up the score. The Ravens, despite some hiccups at this point in the like, getting later and later into the year, like, have largely lived up to the hype of wouldn't it be cool to have these two on the same team? Yeah, for the most part, the teams we've wanted to be good have been good, but at the same time, there's really, other than the Lions, there's no clear favorites. This has been a year where the NFL's dream of parity has really come to pass.
Yeah. I think one of my points later on is remind me to ask you to say that again. Where is it? When we talk about the lows for the NFC South.
Right.
So it's going to be...
Yeah, that one was a little hard to come up with. But yeah, to give you a sense of the structure for this episode, we are going to go through each division pretty quickly and just give our broad highlight, low light, and don't sleep on note.
Yep. It could be a player, anything like that.
Yes, I really like how you devised the structure for that. Shall we kick it off?
Sure. I'll let you introduce, because this is your division, so I'll let you introduce this first guy right here.
Yes. So we are starting with the AFC East, where currently, let me pull up the numbers there for you.
I'm going to be honest, Carter. Side note, or relative side note, I like this. Your favorite team is AFC. My favorite team is NFC. Like, it's a fun divide where it's just we don't have stakes in other conferences until the game, like the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So I feel like that. So
right.
It really
it lets us be healthy.
Yeah. Like if I was like a Dolphins fan and you were a Bills fan, it's like, ooh, that could cause some problems.
Yes, it is helpful. Yeah, it's really It's especially helpful because it's especially helpful just in terms of, I'm trying to think of how to word this, but like basically it gives us a more robust understanding of the league. I force myself to know as much about the AFC as possible. You have to know more about the NFC.
Yeah.
But yeah, to kick it off, the Buffalo Bills are currently leading at 9-2. The Dolphins are 4-6. The New York Jets and New England Patriots are both 3-8. So I had a couple. Yeah, we'll get there. So I have a couple ones I thought about putting for highlight, but I'm going to start with this one. My first highlight is the Bills show what an actual point guard offense looks like. I feel like in a lot of different situations, we have seen basically teams argue, we really want a point guard at quarterback. We want someone who can distribute the ball, who can just pass it around. That was like the dream vision with Mac Jones, with Bryce Young. Weird amount of Alabama quarterbacks, actually. But I feel like the Bills have shown, like, it's not just about the quarterback there. It's about having as many options at wide receiver as possible. And, like, look, I feel like most Bills fans can concede now the everyone eats spin in the preseason was cope because our slightly manic wide receiver demanded a trade and we didn't have a plan for that. But now that they added Amari Cooper, it's actually very clear, like, the Chiefs game in particular really underlined, like, every single receiver has, like, 2 or 3 routes they're being asked to do on any given play. The one that's really clear is Dawson Knox. It's like, look, 90% of the time, if you're in the game, you're going to be blocking. But on these, like, play-action power sets, you're going to be running to the post, and Josh can throw you an easy ball there. Amari, your fades, inside slants, and just, like, general route running, like, man-to-man coverage. Keon, you are exclusively doing jump balls and slant routes now. Like, Shakir, in the middle, or screen pass. It's like, I would argue in terms of, like, balance, this is what they've been trying to strive for so many years. it's probably the most balanced offense they've had since 2020 when they first got Stephon Diggs, where everyone has a clear defined role and there's no strain like previous years where guys were being forced to play above their weight class.
Yeah, and there's also I feel like with the removal of Diggs, because that removes such a higher caliber player, because he is pretty damn good. But it's like,
Yes, I'm not going to do the revisionist history like a lot of Bills fans do.
yeah,
He was great.
but the removal of him kind of puts everyone else at an even playing field. So it's like you're not just throwing to the same guy every time, and people are just going to double cover him, and then you're not going to go anywhere. Like kind of what happened last season. It's like all right, there's Dalton, there's Knox, there's uh, not Dalton is Kincaid, Shakir. There's a very diverse set where it's just like I wouldn't say that a single one of them is on a different level than anyone else, if that makes sense.
Right, right.
Like they're all pretty even. Like if you put on like AJ Brown with that team, it's like all right, they're going to clearly go to AJ Brown any given opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But because they're so even on the field, I feel like that's a very good thing. And
Right. Yeah, it's like now that we have Amari, who is the adult in the room who we can count on in crisis situations, but not the kind of adult in the room who necessitates 9 to 10 targets a game. Everything just feels more, I guess, calm, for lack of a better word.
yeah, there seems to be more logic going on there.
Right. I do think, and like, I maybe this is a point we can make with the NFC West when we get there, but there is something to, like, again, I don't believe in addition through subtraction. If it were up to Bills, they would have tried to keep Micah Hyde, they would have tried to keep Diggs, and they probably would have tried to keep a bunch of guys, but they had to dump cap weight and like pivot to next year.
Yeah.
But there is something to, like, you see the tension, you see kind of the slog that this 49ers season has become, and there really is something to getting so goddamn close to what you want all the time and always coming up short. That just kind of wears on your brain at some point. Like there's scar tissue, there's exhaust.
Because
where it benefits. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you think about it, it's like sure, there's the physical aspect of you are playing an additional month more than most other teams, which in such a sport like this, it's like that builds up a lot of injury possibilities, but it just wears on your body more.
Right.
And then
literal wear and mental wear.
Yeah. And then the psychological aspect of you think you build yourself a star-studded team and you can't just get over that last finish line despite that. Like, look what happened with the Bengals.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you just keep telling yourself, well, we just run it back. We just run it back. But then everyone kind of is like, well, whose fault is it that we're not pulling this off? Who's to blame here?
Yeah.
And, like, you know, it's no secret that a big part of Diggs's consternation was that he was like, the coaching staff isn't serious enough about winning, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But, like, yeah, there is something to, like, just bringing in young guys who don't have all that baggage, bringing in new guys who are genuinely excited to be in a new place.
Yeah.
Like, that just makes everything feel calmer.
Also,
like, you know.
Possible hot take? A new guy coming into a, for lack of a better term, cult-centric fan base.
Mm-hmm.
I would be more hype about being a rookie for that team as long as I have an opportunity to prove myself. Because if you do, that city's going to love you. And that's going to be super encouraging. But if you, like, it's also the glass cannon, or not glass cannon, double-edged sword, where if you suck, like, you can't hold your own with the big boys, you're gonna get hate.
Well, that's kind of... Well, I mean, again, I don't like the revisionist history that Sammy Watkins wasn't good on the Bills. He was a 1,000-yard wide receiver with E.J. Manuel and Kyle Orton throwing him the ball, and, like, was considered an NFL top 100 player before the injuries and substance abuse kind of dragged him down. But, like, yeah, that is part of what happened with Sammy Watkins. The fans kind of turned on him, and it just made everything worse. Mm-hmm. But, like, I also, God, I love Fitzy Boy. Fitzmagic was on.
Yeah.
He was on some radio show talking about like I forgot it all started because of that game against the Steelers where Stevie Johnson dropped the game-winning touchdown pass, and then went on Twitter and was like, "God, why?" And someone quipped like, "Why are you blaming God? You fucked up." And all these Bills fans just like crawling out of the sewer like cockroaches jumped this dude. Like, fuck you, he's our guy. It's okay to make mistakes. Like literally the fucking New Yorkers in Spider-Man 1 like throwing shit at Green Goblin to protect Spider-Man while he's saving a bunch of kids. Um,
Yeah.
Classic. Yes, would you like to share your highlight? Which is also, I feel like it has to be
Yeah.
AFC. It has to be the
It
Bills.
has in the AFC East. It has to be the Bills. There's no denying that. But my highlight, very, very incredibly similar. Um, it specifically calls out Josh Allen.
Yes.
Joshy boy, he's the Chief Slayer. He is the one that ended their streak this year. And it wasn't in like he didn't pull out some crazy magic. It wasn't like any sort of nonsense. It was just good. It was good football playing, good QB awareness, and he ran the damn ball.
Yes. Like I said, I've compared him to like a conductor this year in terms of just being like very calm and collected. One of the funniest stats is that his turnover worthy play percentage is exactly the same from last year, but the bounces have just broken better this year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also demeanor. He just feels calmer. He just feels more relaxed. And like, yeah, we could not run the ball for shit this game. James Cook's 2 touchdowns felt fraudulent. We were averaging 3 yards a carry, and he just had to dink and dunk his way to get to 30 points and capped it off. It is so funny that Jim Nantz immediately went play of the year, and I'm like, I don't know, man. He's had like at least 10 better plays against the Chiefs. Even more if you count all the times he jumped over someone. Um, but like, yeah, no, it's like I don't know. The Chiefs Bills games frustrate me because we always get their goat in the regular season. Then something cartoonish goes wrong in the playoffs. Like either our head coach decides to play for overtime, or we've lost 3 linebackers and we're down to AJ Klein trying to cover Travis Kelce with the power of Taylor Swift. Something always goes
Yeah.
cockamamie in the playoffs. But I can't deny that it feels really, really good, especially this time around when the Chiefs seemingly have everything going their way to finally have one bounce our way. It will be, they got one of the games of the year, and that's got to be a highlight as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like it was a great game. It was a great football game. So I feel like it checks out. It makes sense on why that has to be a highlight of the division or of the division. Yeah. Shall we get into some of the lows of the division?
Do you want to do yours first on this one?
Sure. I mean, I feel like this isn't going to be a long conversation because it's things we've been saying
Correct,
all
Mundo.
season. To his head.
Yes, he has decided he's going to keep playing, and no one feels great about that.
Brain got scrambled. Obviously, a low moment. Of course, the situation was not helped by the commentary team going. It's like, oh man, ironic it came from DeMar Hamlin. Like, come on, man.
I imagine the next day was a meme where one of the commentators goes to their meeting and goes, "Guess who just got yelled at?"
Yeah, that's
because holy shit, man.
What a like there's some very infamous lines in all sports and entertainment where you like hear it and it's like one of those like, oh man, this is gonna stick with me for a while. And that is like one of them where it's just like, holy shit, like, and it's not even out of like the classic like after WrestleMania 40, after that like second night, Michael Cole says for the first time probably in his entire career on television, like while commentating, he's like, I love pro wrestling because Vince made pro wrestling a no word, but Triple H brought it back. And it's just like, man, that was like a majestic moment. and like they chose the right moment to end on, and them and him just going, it's like, of course it was Demar. It's like, and it's just like, come on, man, like you just harshed my, you just harshed my vibes greatly.
Yeah. Yeah, it is frustrating because Tua will somehow tie into my sleeper pick, but like, yeah, it's
And his unwill well, it's that and their unwillingness to find a solid backup QB, because I feel like that was made obvious this season. And
right.
it's like,
The fact that they truly cannot run this offense without him certainly, I can't imagine, helped the situation in terms of like
yeah,
convincing him it's okay to step away.
yeah, you're telling me you don't have a like the ability to find somebody that is a top 64 quarterback to be your backup? Like, maybe being generous, closer to like the top 40, because you have a wide receiving core that is gorgeous with
Mm-hmm.
Waddle and Hill. Your running backs are awesome. So it's like you have almost the most elite offense, but you can't live without your quarterback in a scary fashion.
Right. And it really is just like, I mean, I hate saying this, but I almost don't blame Tua for coming back, and I don't blame the Dolphins for pressuring him to come back, because at the end of the day, it's like, this is it. Like, this is the team. You've spent the money, you've spent the draft picks. This is the team you're going to have, and like,
Yeah.
if it doesn't work now, it's never going to work, and it's over. So, yeah, I guess you have to keep going because you have to keep going.
Yeah, and it's a team that makes you look like you could be elite.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's an unnecessary amount of pressure.
Yeah.
But,
I just, I hope at least in the off season he pauses and reflects a little bit.
yeah.
Shall I get my low light? I
Eh,
promise I'll keep the ranting to a minimum. I tried to prioritize on this, like, doing more, like, groups or, like, themes as opposed
yeah.
to just talking about teams in their entirety, because that's just kind of, I don't know, that's, like, it's not fun to just be like, you stink, you're great. Like, with the
Yeah.
Bills, I pivoted it to be about a positional group as opposed to the entire
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, unless if they do like I try to keep the highs and lows pretty vague, but it's really just trying to
This one's
emphasize the
impossible.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. But this one is impossible because there is no story more catastrophic, more stupid, more just kind of like if you question the idea, like for me it's like if I were to ever question the idea of like fate weavers or like a divine cosmic plan ever again, I will just remind myself that truly there was only one way this Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets scenario could go, and it is exactly how it went. I just want to the stat that has been parlayed around a little bit is that both Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson have a better winning percentage with the New York Jets than Aaron Rodgers had,
Yeah.
with a lot more margin for error because they played a lot more games. The team has won a grand total of 3 games, one of which was against the Tennessee Titans, while Will Levis was doing his actively throwing charade. The New England Patriots, before they put in Drake May,
Mm-hmm.
and Houston, who's just kind of a mess right now. They have fired their coach, they have fired their GM, they traded away one of their key additions in the offseason. They spent a lot of draft capital to get another wide receiver. And yeah, nothing is working right. And you know what? It is. I thought about how funny it was that they didn't have a firing the coach bounce. Like
Yeah.
theoretically that would have. Yeah, you see with so many teams when they fire the coach, the whole team just gets fired up. They're like, finally, the dark days are over. We've seen it. The Saints have won back to back inexplicably, despite losing 7 straight games. The Saints are back in the divisional hunt. But no, not the Jets. The Jets proceeded to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 games because at the end of the day, Robert Saleh was not the coach of this team. It was Aaron fucking Rodgers.
Yeah.
Perhaps one of the most insufferable humans we've ever had the misfortune of having in this National Football League. A man who embodies just truly the nadir of American culture. This anti-intellectual, too cool for the room, just asking questions, cultural rot that has slowly destroyed this nation, that I genuinely don't know how we get ourselves out of, other than some kind of foreign intervention and shitification, the likes of which we haven't seen since we occupied the Empire of Japan. And all of it for this guy who won a grand total of a single Super Bowl, and yet we are supposed to, the Kyrie Irving of the NFL, who had one shining moment in the sun and has proceeded to insist upon himself ever since, who's loud and vaguely interesting enough that the ESPN was willing to prop him up until this sad, sad season where they just can't anymore. He is a sad little clown with a punchline that finally isn't worth it. And you know what really pisses me off about the whole thing? Like, it ain't even the politics, because at the end of the day, his politics are boring. His politics are generic. They're the embodiment of the libertarian college kid who thinks just because he was able to convince some senior to give him a puff of a cigarette and a goth girl to give him a gentle handy, that he's somehow cool now and that his ideas matter. Like, the only thing that's interesting about him is he inadvertently gives Pfizer more power by complaining about them. The saddest part is, I don't think, you can argue he was never, like, all of this insisting upon himself, and he was never even the best quarterback of his era. He wasn't as good as Tommy Boy. He wasn't as good as Peyton. He wasn't as good as Drew Brees. Fuck, I mean, maybe Phillip Rivers was even better than him. He was, and then when he finally gets the NFL to himself, who's better than him? Joshy Boy, Patty, Lamar, Herbert. Fuck, even Matthew Stafford, the closest. Matthew Stafford is everything we kept being told Aaron Rodgers was. And I will give you $1 billion. Like, I would be willing to bet multiple years of my life that if you swap their places and Matthew Stafford got to be in one of the chillest, most well-run organizations in the NFL, he would have won more than one Super Bowl. He surely would have actually earned those MVPs, those two pity MVPs that Matt LaFleur dragged you to, because the NFL wanted to make sure you got... The NFL wasted too much stock on you and needed to justify your greatness. Fuck off, you annoying little twerp. It's over.
Now tell us how you really feel.
It's annoying. It's really annoying. Just boring. That's the sad part. It's more boring than anything.
Yeah.
Like, the minute some guy goes on the radio and accuses people he doesn't like of being on the Epstein list, you're like, oh, so your politics are nothing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your demeanor is that of a pouty child. Okay.
Yep.
This was partially a Cooper Cup defense league, because I still can't believe he didn't win that MVP. And that made me turn on, like, Matthews. And were you even the best Green Bay Packers quarterback? Bart Starr has more Super Bowls than you. Brett Favre had more longevity and more records than you. And it's no coincidence that after you shit your pants against the Detroit Lions in Week 17 to cost your team the playoffs, Jordan Love takes over and he's immediately loved and is helping that team get to the playoffs.
Well, it's in the name.
All right. But yes, I hate, there's nothing I hate more than waste of time and bad process. And he is this whole scenario was a screaming, upset tummy shitting embodiment of wasting everyone's time. Anyway, what's our don't sleep on stuff? Unless you have anything to add.
No, not for this episode.
I mean, I guess the quick question is, what team is going to be desperate enough to give him another chance? Because it's very clear he doesn't have enough people in his life to get him to stop playing football. It's very clear. At least it's very clear with Tua. People clearly love him and want him to make the right decision. They just can't convince him yet.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't, someone would have stopped him the minute he started talking about RFK. So, what team is desperate enough for a quarterback but thinks they can, win now?
I got nothing.
Really, that's the crazy part. I'm maybe the Oakland Raiders. Maybe they talk themselves into, there's too much there. We can't waste our time on a rebuild. We have to go now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they rather waste their time on a rebuild because it,
right?
it it'd be
If they were
one
going to draft Michael Penix,
it'd be one thing if they were just a very losing team,
mm,
but they are clearly not like just a losing team. There's clearly something with him related to it where
mm,
a lot of higher ups have been fired, but not a lot of like players have been moved around outside of you know
Mike
pe-
Williams,
yeah,
yeah,
but like your Rogers guys.
yeah, and yeah, it's just yeah, and the team's going to be lost in the woods for a while because their owner is going to be the ambassador to England again. Bon voyage, you little fascist prick. I'm spicy tonight.
You are anyway.
Anyway, what's our don't sleep on stuff? Oh,
Uh,
I guess I'll do mine first to
yeah.
bounce off the Tua thing. Is Tua secretly the MVP specifically for Achan? Because, like, here's the thing. Yes, they haven't figured out the backup quarterback thing, and that is a problem. But at the same time, it's like
It still makes Tua look good though.
it still makes Tua look incredible, especially Devon Achan, because you look at like the games where he didn't have, where they were giving him a prominent amount of carries, but he didn't have Tua. Against the Seahawks, 11 carries for 30 yards. Tennessee, 10 carries for 15 yards. The Colts, he finally starts to get it together, 15 carries for 7 yards. But then the minute he gets Tua back, averages 9 yards a carry, averages 5 yards a carry, averages 3 yards a carry, but then 4 yards a carry. Genuinely, like, he completely turns it around.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone on the team looks unmistakably better with him. And I do
Yeah.
think we underrate it's like this is a very specific system that was built for Tua.
Oh yeah.
For all of his faults, he has talent. He's very
No, he
good
does.
at like rhythmic throwing and like precision passing.
His talent
And
is there. His abilities, like his physical football abilities, shouldn't be questioned. It's
yes,
just his like it's one of those. How far can you go before your body can't hang on?
right. And what's weird is since coming back, he's been a lot. Well, I guess it's bad. He's been way less risk averse. He's been scrambling around a lot more. He's been doing. He looks more like college Tua, and maybe that's just because he's decided he's got nothing to lose, which is a very scary place to be. But like, it is undeniable. Like maybe there is just no version of this offense that works without Tua. Maybe they just blow
Mm-hmm.
it up after Tua like leaves,
Yeah.
and you just trade everyone for what you can and build a new offense.
Yeah. No, it's it's weird. He's very essential but not essential. Or he's very
Right.
essential, but he shouldn't be that
But the
as
ceiling of
essential.
that, yeah,
That's what
he's
I'm
very
saying.
essential, but the ceiling of that isn't what you want it to be.
Hmm.
I really like yours. That I almost made this mine, but I'm glad you covered it.
Yeah, I feel like this. I feel like this is a kind of fun take. Drake May could be a future star.
Yes.
He's like that. He's a quarterback. Like we discussed it multiple times over the episodes, where he started kind of late in the season at a weird spot where they're
Mm.
against a solid team, and I believe abroad. And it's like, do they are they it's like, is that a right move? Is that a wrong move? But he's also behind. He was behind Jacoby Brissett, and I feel like it was clear from drafting him that he was not going to stay behind Jacoby Brissett forever. And I
Yes.
feel like that was a relatively clear concept. And in my opinion, Brissett
Mm.
is one of those people that has that right amount of mentorship ability, where
Yes.
he's. I wouldn't say he's the one of like he's not a bad quarterback, but I wouldn't say he's like a top 10. But he
Mm.
has enough skills and knowledge that he could be a backup and he could advise, which for a young quarterback with a lot of potential, that's a very great thing.
Right.
And
He's always been a fringe, secretly good quarterback. Although this year, it just seems like his physical ability isn't quite where it used to be.
yeah, and now like May is getting more snaps in, more plays in, and I feel like it's clearly showing like how good like he's he's improving steadily. He doesn't have an
Mm.
ideal team, which don't blame him for. can't really hold that against him. But he he's helped lead the team to some solid. Like they beat the Titans and Jets, which and or no, they lost to the Titans. They beat the Jets and Bears, and they
Yes.
like it was a close game against the Jets, but it was close against the Titans that they lost. But they've all like the last few games where he started, it's all been within. Most of them have been within one score.
Mhm.
So it's clear that he's showing a lot of potential. I just want to see I want
Yes.
to see them build and focus building around him.
One of the coolest stats I saw is that his errant throw rate or accurate target rate is one of the best in the NFL, despite his success rate not being as high, which is the classic stat of like good quarterback on a bad team.
Yeah.
He really has shown it, just in terms of poise, leadership. There is a weird little story that came out that he didn't want to go to the Boston Celtics game because he felt like he hadn't done enough yet to warrant like a courtside like celebrity appearance.
I like that.
Yes, you watch him, and it is just one of the. Again, it's like Drake May, and it's what we've seen occasionally with Caleb Williams. Of like, you just see him do one or two things in the game where you're like, oh, that's a future. Like, there's something to build there. They are exciting. They get the fans on their feet. And like even the problems that he had coming into the draft of like, his footwork's really sloppy and some of his processing isn't great. You haven't really seen that. It already feels like he's like, again, he's on the younger side. He's still developing, and that development seems to be working. The thing is just like, Patriots, do not fuck this up. This draft has to be one of the best in franchise history going forward.
Possibly hot take. They gotta draft their first pick has to be whoever the top receiver is.
Right.
They can use help across the board, but giving somebody that Drake May can feed to is in my opinion, priority number one.
Yeah. For them, it really just comes down to the question of, do you see Travis Hunter as like a full-on wide receiver? Because like, if he wants to play cornerback and wide receiver, I don't know if you go that way, just because like he's a much better cornerback than he is a wide receiver, honestly. But he has a lot of upside as a wide receiver. Otherwise, there are a couple options that aren't like, this isn't as great a wide receiver draft as last year, but there's still some really fun options that I do hope they look into. Like, I know you also need to build the line, but like, when you're in the top 10 and there isn't like a blow your pants off, like if there's no Penny Sewells in the draft, don't go offensive lineman. Like the consternation with the Bengals was like Penny Sewell was right there, like not that you drafted a wide receiver.
Yeah, no, that you need like they're probably gonna have a top 10 pick, almost guaranteed, and the teams that need new quarterbacks are going to be fighting for that top 5 spot to try and get the quarterback earliest as possible. So, possibly trading down a couple picks depending on where they end in the draft order, so they can get something extra out of it and still an early quality receiver. Because like running back wise, they have Stevenson, who's solid. I wouldn't say he's amazing, but he's not bad.
Reliable.
But their receiving core is what needs help the most, because if you've watched the last couple of like games and stuff or like highlights of him, the offensive line is holding like just enough. I feel like it's a little bit more of a receiver issue of them getting open. And then you can do things like after the draft, do the trades to build your offensive line or sign people.
I agree.
Use those pickups to build your line against with reliable. I'll play one more season, I guess. Like veterans. Yeah. All right.
Shall we move on to the AFC North, where, in kind of a surprise turn of events after last week, which we'll talk about in our weekly recap later, the Pittsburgh Steelers lead the division at 8-2. The Baltimore Ravens are 7-4. The Cincinnati Bengals are 4-7, and the Cleveland Browns are 2-8.
Yep.
Do you want to hit me with your high note? We weirdly picked the same team.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was kind of an obvious pick for the teams because I think we're both in agreement that the high note might not be always like the hottest moment or like the best stat, but it is literally like it's like this is what you want to look for, and especially in the future. But mine is Pittsburgh is showing improvement without being like what I would consider a rebuild. They switched up the quarterback picture a little bit, despite somebody just fumbling the ball.
Oh, criminy crackers!
Yeah, Broncos country. Let's. But
yeah,
they it's still like they're 8-2. They didn't get there for being cheap. They didn't get there for being like lazy. So, and they didn't like outside of the quarterback. They didn't do any crazy huge changes on both sides. I mean, like there was the addition of Patrick Queen, which is like that's nice. That's a solid grab. But there isn't like anything like super crazy changes. Like they didn't lose half their wide receiver core. It was literally just that change in quarterback.
Right.
But yeah. No.
Yeah. That kind of ties into that actually exactly ties into mine because
that's why I'm leaving it as big as I am.
Right. It's like a part of the Mike Tomlin never having a losing record thing. It has been this frustrating middle ground. If they've been drafting pretty well, especially on defense, they finally built up an offensive line over the last 2 or 3 years. And like while they're thin at wide receiver, they found like a genuine crazy man in George Pickens. The problem is you can only get so far if you don't get the quarterback spot right. And it really is telling. You want to know another funny sort of analytics stat is in terms of success rate, Justin Fields was around 41%. Russell Wilson was around 42%. They're basically exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's just the different flavor of what you're getting.
Do you want the one that focuses more on running or the one that focuses more on throwing?
Right. Do you want the one who will dunk his way around the field and make 3 or 4 explosive run plays a game? Or do you want the one that like allows you to run a more traditional run game and do a lot of play action and like chuck down moon balls? And they decided they value those a little more, despite his misgivings in like a couple other areas, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, it really is a testament to like they've finally gotten their quarterback play up to adequate. They've not had adequate quarterback play in forever. That was that year they went 11-0 and then proceeded to collapse down the stretch because it's like, oh, this was made on fool's gold. Ben Roethlisberger does not want to hold the ball. He's like literally flicking it away the minute he gets it. They have to run exclusively out of shotgun because he can't drop back anymore. Yeah. And then you had like the weird hodgepodge of like Duck Hodgins, who isn't a real NFL quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, who like despite the little rebranding in Buffalo wasn't able to do much, and then Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
and like
don't forget Pickett.
I genuinely forgot about him. I was saying that, but Kenny Pickett's his problem is he has the irrational confidence of someone with Justin Fields' physical traits without having Justin Fields' physical traits, and Russell Wilson's previous success without having Russell Wilson's previous success. And it really is incredible. And like Mason Rudolph just doesn't have the physical upside to be a great quarterback. And it really is telling that between the two, you just are able to get to baseline competency.
Yeah.
However, Russell Wilson is very bad in the Reds. I genuinely think they should just take Wilson. Like, just go full, like, go weird. Do both quarterbacks.
I was going to say, I feel like they've been kind of doing the thing where it's like they've been switching more than normal.
Yeah, they finally did start doing that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of it keeps everyone on their toes and their quarterback fresh. I like that.
Right. I'm genuinely shocked more teams haven't just done this. It's like the Dolphins made the playoffs having their running back be quarterback half the time when they did the whole the Wildcat thing in like 2008 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, why not? Shall we do the lowlights?
We shall. I feel like mine's pretty quick.
I already did my whole rant on this asshole.
I have a lot of opinions on yours, or not a lot of opinions, but I've got more opinions on yours to contribute to that.
Got you.
I feel like it's the lowest light, especially proven by this season, is how badly Cleveland lost in the Deshaun Watson trade.
It is wild. It like transcends the sport almost.
Yeah.
Because like there have been a lot of bad trades in the NFL. What is the one? What's his name? The guy Herschel Walker. Like the Herschel
Yeah.
Walker trade always gets referenced. Like there's a couple, but this one like transcends the sport where it's like, is this just the worst thing that's ever happened in sports? Again, the most unfun sports story that didn't involve a murder.
Yeah. It's they traded so much, and the Texans have gotten C.J. Stroud and are rebuilding to be the Strouds. Well off. Then they're starting off well off with that. Really holding their own as like kind of leading in the next. I would say like kind of like officially the post Tom Brady and Peyton Manning generation. Like I feel like because like I feel like we talked about this where there's like clear generations of like generational talents and stuff, and you have and with how long like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees all played, that kind of put like a hindrance on people like Mahomes from starting like a new generation. Like there's kind of like there's stars in it, but there's not like a clear distinct like it's like oh this is a generation of quarterbacks that it's gonna be living to the ages. It's like no, you're still competing like you're still having these 20-year-olds try and compete with somebody they watched on TV in first grade, and they're playing a game against each other like this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like CJ Stroud is like the official first start of the like new like actual clean slate generation. Like despite there being other good quarterbacks around and stuff, but I feel like he's the start of like the old guys are like clearly out of the picture now, and Patrick Mahomes has been the dominant QB since. But that being said, with all that pickups of him and the amount they lost for him, and I don't think that Deshaun Watson's completed a single season with the
Nope.
Browns. So there's that, which looks terrible. There's all the stuff off the field, which looks terrible. And it's just like you traded away the entire farm and you received a duck.
What's all right? That's really funny.
Not even a fancy duck. It's just a duck.
Just a little sick. Um, but yeah, it's just, and what's sad is that honestly, 9 out of 10 teams probably would have done it, and they would probably do it again, take the chance again.
Yeah.
Like, that's the league's become so skewed toward elite physical talent at quarterback. Like, again, a lot of teams were talking to him. A lot of teams were offering stuff. But Cleveland just happened to be the most desperate and the most to cross the Rubicon that no one else was willing to with a fully guaranteed contract.
The sigh of relief that everybody that lost out on that deal must be feeling right now, huge.
Right. Like, history won't remember that they were pretty close. Yeah. They'll just remember the Browns. And yeah, I mean, again, it's a shame because there's so many people in the Browns I like, but like this stink is going to follow them around too, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, and for those like people that are there probably for their careers, like Myles Garrett, like Nick Chubb, because the Browns aren't stupid, they're going to try and pay people that'll be good. I feel like they're kind of screwed over with how like their quality of legacy is always going to have that aftertaste of Deshaun Watson, especially with Nick Chubb because he's on the offense.
Right. I think a lot about Joe Thomas, who was like in the Brady Quinn era of the Cleveland Browns. Although I guess he barely even played for the Browns, but 10-time Pro Bowler, like staple, iconic offensive lineman, Hall of Famer. But like I just think about how he didn't play in a single game worth a damn. Never made the playoffs. Like
Yeah.
one of the sadder stories in NFL, like the NFL for me, was like his wife would just come pick him up and to like go home after the game, and he would just be inconsolably sobbing, and she'd be like, I just didn't know what to do. Like, what can I even say to make this better?"
Yeah.
And it's just like it's a shame that another generation of like genuinely great Cleveland Browns players basically are in the same boat.
Yeah. Which it sucks so much for them. So unless that they can pull some like huge turnarounds over the next couple of years,
I mean,
there's
they're gonna probably have the first overall pick this year. They at least have that dignity going for them.
yeah. But it depends on what they
Um,
do with it because they could be fools. Now your low
yes.
light of the NFC North.
The Bengals might have the best offense in the league, and it just doesn't matter. It's Joe Burrow. That pun didn't work as well out loud as I'd hoped it
No,
would.
it really didn't.
I'm so sorry. But yes, Joe Burrow, like, genuinely, they are the most fun team to watch that isn't going to make the playoffs. Like, they still have a shot. They still have a shot, but they are, like, almost 3 games back from the Denver Broncos and still have a lot of division games to go. Joe Burrow, first player to 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. I believe he is currently leading the league in quarterback rating. He has simply looked dynamic. Any questions about whether or not
Yeah.
he is an individually great quarterback? I feel like get shut up once you start watching the highlights of this year, where he's going into creation mode. He's just leading drive after drive of efficient play.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Jamar Chase, 12 touch. He has 3 more touchdowns than the next closest guy, first to 1,000 yards. And T. Higgins has unfortunately not been able to play a lot this year. He's only played 6 games, but he already, at the midway point, he almost has 500 yards.
Yeah.
One of the biggest lessons from this is the Bengals cannot have any. They have to pay him. They simply have. Like, the offense is so much better with him on the field, and like it would be a sin to break up this incredible collection of players. But it doesn't matter because the defense. It really is amazing. Of like the difference between like the 15th best defense and the 25th best defense is so stark in this league of like if they could even get to middle of the road, they would win so many more games. But like at some point there's no amount of offensive production that can overcome a mediocre defense.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. With especially with how he's like, it was. I was considering making this my don't sleep on, but I didn't because you have it in your list. But his like you, the talent is there, the quality is there. It's just what he gets put up against is not. Sorry, the cat just walked into the room meowing and just brought in the biggest cricket on the planet.
Why?
Why? Because she's trying to eat it. But
Oh, all right
anyway,
then.
it's just I feel like they they had a cold start this season, losing to the Patriots and then the Chiefs and then the Commanders. But it's like the Commanders, like at the time, weren't still this confirmed to be this scary level team yet. And they just keep getting put against teams that are like distinctly better than them. And because they're facing the best and they're facing the worst. There's no in between.
Right.
So it's just,
Like I would argue that the Bengals offense on any given game is going to be the best individual side of the ball in any matchup they are. The problem is 2 and 3 are the other teams. And their defense is pointedly way at the bottom
yeah,
of like the list.
yeah. Defense not great, and it's just it's like a weird losing battle because like there's having a schedule where you play only hard teams, which that sucks. Like low record and all that stuff. But I feel like the Bengals have like the actual worst schedule because it is what's it called? Because it is such like you can really show off your talent against these like lower caliber teams. And then against the higher caliber teams you want to and you try to and you kind of succeed, but then you just get like screwed over by different things like the defense makes a stupid mistake or like penalties and stuff. So it's just it sucks to be them.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Again, I'm like, it's the exact same Bills last year, 5-5, where we were like, are we sure we can't just take one of these teams and just
Yeah.
Do we really need to see the Mason Rudolph Steelers in the playoffs? But I digress. Our don't sleep ons. This division might have the most like game of the years per matchup. Like it's dawned on me how many of the best games this year have so much of the awesome football games we've witnessed this year have solely been on the backs of the AFC North.
Week 10.
So we started.
I was say week 10.
Yes.
Bengals Ravens, in my opinion, is a clear candidate for game of the year.
Game of the year.
Yeah.
The Ravens Steelers game last week was also very notable and just utter chaos. The opening game of the year, Chiefs Ravens, was an absolute banger. The other Ravens Bengals game was also a banger that went into time. The Ravens Browns game, where we just saw Jameis Winston's first game. That was peak Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Still thinking about Russell Wilson, I guess.
No, it's been like slaughters, or not slaughters, but it's just like, in my opinion, like reasons to watch football.
Yes.
And
Bengals Chargers.
Yeah.
I'm just listing off ones that I'm finding now.
Yeah, but here's the downside of that, and I didn't. Oh yeah, no, this is kind of going into my sleep on. Like we're talking about the quality of this division. But then the Browns just bring it down. They're not an amazing team this year. If they were of that like defensive caliber they were last season, where they're just kind of like absolutely stunning people with just their defense alone, it's like, yes, this would be an exciting division to watch. But they or even more exciting. But that just kind of knocks them down a bit.
Right. This isn't like last year where literally the Bengals were one game away from having all four teams make the playoffs.
Yeah.
This is like, there is one like sort of stepchild of the now.
Yeah.
And like, even if they were a bit spunkier, it would be like, they don't have like there are plenty of bad teams who have enough spunk to make games interesting. Like the Titans are that, the Dolphins have been, like the Patriots and Dolphins have been that. Like they aren't spunky enough to like keep people in their seats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
AFC West is where we're heading next.
Yes. So the AFC West, home of the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, they lead the division at 9-1. Mm-hmm. The Los Angeles Chargers are having a 7-3 season so far. The Denver Broncos are 6-5, and the Las Vegas Oakland Raiders are 2-8.
I refer to them as the Oakland Raiders, like only a couple hours ago.
Seriously, fuck Vegas. I can't. I hate every league trying to force Vegas down our throats. It's not a sports town. Enough of this.
No, but it brings in money.
But they're moving the A's out of there, They've ruined the A's to force this down our throats. They're doing that the whole point of that stupid mid-season NBA tournament cup thing is because they want to make Vegas a destination and they want an expansion date. Like the NBA has made it very clear that they want to expand, and the teams are Seattle and they want Vegas. So they're like trying to artificially make an audience there.
Bring
and also,
back the Seattle Supersonics.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing. That's the plan. But here's my thing. If I'm Seattle, I'm like, politely, fuck that. We want our original team back.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City Thunder are one of the best teams in the league right now. That was built off of all of our stuff. Give us that team back, and Oklahoma City can have the expansion team. And here's the thing, I actually think they have a reasonable argument, because there's no other market the NBA can expand to. What are you going to do, an international team? You're going to try Canada again? That didn't really work. Are you really going to bring a team to Buffalo? That didn't really work the first time.
Bring in the Montreal Expos. Anyway.
You're going to do Vancouver again? But yeah, no, I'm like, why not play that card? Be dicks. Everyone agrees it was a screw job the first time. Why not, be dicks about it? But anyway, yes, so my high is the Harbaugh Redemption Squad. Honestly, the Chargers have just kind of become one of my favorite teams to watch because the vibes are so immaculate right now. Again, Brandon Staley was one of the saddest looking men to ever coach. like someone pointed out, the Chargers are just as cursed as like the Bills and the Lions, but no one gives them credit for that because they live in sunny Los Angeles and like, it's always sunny and they have cool players and a cool jersey and like in reality they've had just as much futility as every other team. But it really is incredible just how like a coaching change, getting one of like the best vibe coaches this league has ever seen, has really just turned things around. And again, it's all like good stories. Justin Herbert, who's been like the nerd analytic guy's favorite quarterback for years, looks as good as we've wanted him to look in terms of hyper efficient, but he's also using his legs now. He's healthier for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
He's got a little swagger now. He went for like he's like pounding his chest, he's stomping around, like he clearly has taken a leadership position on this team. J.K. Dobbins, who's always been the like, man, if he could just be healthy guy, is finally healthy and it's insane how fast he looks considering he has had a torn Achilles. And even like the weird little collection of wide receivers they have. Ladd McConkey turned out to be the perfect fit for this team in terms of like a 3-tier route runner. Again, yeah, great name. It's like a funny name to have on like a glamorous team. Like again, it's like the Beverly Hillbillies where it's like Los Angeles, glamour, prestige. I'm Ladd McConkey. Yeah. And Quentin Johnson is actually like that guy was a first-round pick last year. They were talking about cutting him in the offseason. And he's quietly having a pretty good year. He's still horribly inefficient. Like last game, he had 8 targets and only caught 2 of them. But he's scoring touchdowns. He's making plays. Like he's a part of the offense in a way that's really nice. And then the defense is just like a who's who of guys who hustle. Despite not having like top-end talent, they are like one of the best defenses in the league. It is really amazing just like how the sun is finally up in Los Angeles, where it feels like instead of like just having big names, they're building something, which is not something you can have said for them for a long time.
Yeah, no, I can agree to that. I mean, they're looking better. I'm not saying I'm eating crow on my opinions on them kind of being a little overhyped and stuff, but they're looking like a proper football team this time around.
That's a good way of putting it, honestly.
Like when they had the ability to flop, and they could have, they very well easily could have. They didn't. They like actually turned themselves around because they had I think it was last season they had a little bit of a rougher time. Bottom of the division.
Last year was miserable.
Yeah, bottom of the division, 5 wins, and they've already beaten that.
But yeah, like again, they're going to make the playoffs, and they are actually the scrappy. Like they're the actually scrappy. They are actually the like scrappy, like playoff team that I genuinely don't want to face in the playoffs. Where I'm like, God damn it. No, they're going to win a playoff game like 17-10, and it'll be great for them, and it will cause the coach of whatever team they lost to get fired.
You know what vibes they're giving off? They're giving off, like, at least as of right now, if they were to make it into the playoff picture, they would give off Green Bay vibes, where they're going to come in 6 or 7, and they are going to somehow eliminate a top-tier juggernaut.
Yes, but I have even more faith in them because Justin Herbert's this isn't his first year starting. He's been around the block.
Yeah.
No, that's the exact energy. They're going to roll into like a home game for someone. It's going to be a whole thing, and they're just going to punch them square in the stomach, and everyone's going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're going to upset like the Steelers or the Ravens or someone like that. Like
if I'm the AFC North team who's leading the division, I might just tank to get a worse seed.
Yeah, there's
like I'll do full ducking to get out of that.
Yeah.
That has AFC North dud written all over it.
It really does, honestly. So mine is, and I think I could lead my high directly into my low. My high is the Chiefs could three-peat. I don't like it. I don't want it. But you can't deny that is good stuff if you are a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see history, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun to see. That being said, the Chiefs could three-peat in a derogatory term. First off, I don't believe they've shown the same caliber as previous years. I feel like they've
Oh,
gotten
emphatically.
I feel like they've gotten lucky more than anything else. Blocked punt or blocked field goal in the Chiefs game, or was it the Broncos game they blocked the field goal, and then the Buccaneers
Yes.
game they did something else kind of skeevy. They would have lost the Ravens game at the opening of the season with the
Big old foot.
stupid toe, the one hint of a toe. I reminded myself of that, but they haven't like distinctly won the game yet. All right,
At least against a great team.
yeah. Guess how, like you, or just in general. Guess you ready for the biggest point difference of one of their games?
It might be the Bills game with
Nope.
9, right?
Nope. Well, I mean, with the
That's their
Chiefs,
worst loss.
yeah, that's their worst loss. But the Chiefs' best win was against the Saints, which means nothing now because it was played in October, not the first 2 weeks, and they won by 13 points. Every other game, let's see, they won by 7 in the Ravens. Once again, kind of BS. They won by 1. They won by 7. They won by 5. Yeah, that's 5. They won by 10. They won by 7. Won by 6. Won by 2. And then lost by 9. And now they're getting fed the Panthers and the Raiders.
Right. I was going to say, it's really good. Like, obviously, division games, anything can happen, but it's really good the Bills beat them just to be safe. Like, all right, let's make sure this isn't 16-0. We need to, like, we're the last guaranteed barrier.
Yeah.
Like, we're the sand dunes preventing, like, floodwaters getting in. If we fell, then it would come down to a miracle. But, like, yeah, it's interesting because, like, I want to be nice to them.
No, it's more of a statement of they, like, with how close they've been and their relative strength of schedule, which they don't have a terrible strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they've gotten lucky, and some of the teams that should cause them problems have clearly fallen off. Shout out to you, 49ers. It's that, but it's also like they're almost guaranteed to get the division again, which since Peyton Manning joined the Broncos, every single season that the Peyton was on the Broncos, they won the division. The second Peyton left the Broncos, it has been the Chiefs. Fun facts with Kevin. But it's just like the Chargers and Broncos are kind of threats, with being 7-3 and 6-5 themselves. But I wouldn't say they're real threats.
Oh no, the division is effectively over, barring some kind of profound collapse. Because again, I love the Chargers, but like, come on now.
Yeah, and I'm kind of sold on the Broncos.
Yeah,
but it's just one of those things where it's just like, it feels kind of like a softball, like whoever wins the NFC South, where it's just like, did you really win a competitive division? No, like if it's at least two teams fighting for it at the end, great. That's a competitive division. If you can't decide who's holding that seed by, I would say, week 15. Like AFC East, not competitive.
Right.
So the fact
it's I will say this division makes me appreciate that, like, maybe one of the more overrated signifiers of success is division title wins, because it's like, okay, Patriots, did you really earn all of those, or did the other teams kind of just stop trying or become incompetent? Like, that's like, again, how the NFC East is and how like the AFC North is, where it keeps rotating. Like, that's ideally what you want. Like, you want parity. You want it to be anyone can win in a year. If it gets down to like 10 straight wins for a team, well, that's just incompetence by everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the level of dominance, and then there's the level of just not being competent, and yeah.
Um,
They kind of, if they played higher caliber teams, their in my opinion, their record would be different.
right.
Because
Yeah, I would.
they cheese
All
a
I'll say
little.
about the
They're
yeah,
cheesing
all
a
I'll say
lot.
about they are, but I also feel bad because it's like this is not the team they imagined rolling out there. Again,
No,
Xavier Worthy should
agreed.
not be this dependent for the team. They had Hollywood Brown. They had Rasheed Wright. Again, adding Hollywood Brown is a low key decent get, even though he's never been like a true elite receiver. Because it's like he's fast. He's supposed to run all the routes
He,
Worthy's running, but now Worthy has to do it, and he's not ready to do it.
yeah, he is in my like he is a solid QB or not QB, wide receiver 2 or 3, solid pick like around there.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's like Rasheed Rice was supposed to be there, and his knees got exploded by your own
Yeah,
quarterback.
that did
Isaiah
happen.
Pacheco was supposed to be a heavy running game option for you, but he broke his leg. Like, the team is not the
That
team it was
also
supposed
did
to be. They've
happen.
also had line injuries. Where it's like, it is impressive that in spite of all of that, the Chiefs have been
Oh,
really good.
yeah, it's great that they're
Yeah,
working through all these tough times. It's just a matter of
like,
they're working through the tough
yeah.
times.
The offense isn't fun or sexy, and this is probably Mahomes' worst season, but, like, it is devious how good they've been outside of the Bills game of, like, forcing, basically being the masters of 3rd and 3. They always figure out a way to get to 3rd and 3 where they can conceivably do anything to get their the first down. On
Mm-hmm.
top of that, the defense is as good as it's ever looked, which is saying a lot because they did lose talent this year. They did have like a talent drain as like the
Yeah,
money gets moved around, and that like consistency and like ability to get first downs and a great defense really is enough to get you through it. Again, it just comes down to the playoffs where it's like, all right, well, how are the breaks you need to win a Super Bowl going to bounce for you? Because you don't have as much time, you don't have as many dudes to make up for that right now.
yep.
Simple. Um, well, yes, our don't sleep on options. You can start us off because mine is more a specific point and yours is like broader building off of it.
Okay. Um, so my point is Broncos country. Let's build.
Yes.
I've been I wouldn't say I'm hot on the Broncos this season, but I've been warm on them. I feel
Hmm.
like they're showing a lot of potential and they're making a lot of right moves. Uh, Going with Bo Nix, which at first kind of seemed like a weird, not a weird pick, but it's just like
A
a,
whatever pick.
yeah, it's like all right, they picked Bo Nix, but they're slowly starting to build like a brand new culture. They're in their post Broncos country let's ride era now, and I think they're working better on just being a bet like another tier up team. I'm not saying they're going into that top third or like that top 10 team, but they're
Hmm.
going from bottom 10 to middle of the pack.
Yes. That's a perfect way of putting it. Like, I think it's impressive because, like, I really thought Sean Payton was just taking the piss with the team. I really thought he was kind of
It seemed like
throwing,
that.
right? I think he kind of actually wanted the Chargers job or he wanted a different job and kind of just was like, well, I can't say no to this huge bag of money. So I guess I'll just phone it in until they fire me and they have to pay me anyway. And even the Bo Nix one, and this kind of leads me right into my sleep point. The Bo Nix thing really felt like a Josh Rosen of like, look, we're in an era where you can draft a quarterback, and if it doesn't work out, you kick him to the curb and draft another one. Just keep
Yeah.
drafting quarterbacks. Um, but yet, this really made me appreciate, like, shoot, okay, Russell Wilson really was bad in Denver. Like, maybe Sean Payton being a grumpus about Russell Wilson was warranted, because you see Bo Nix out there, who
Mm-hmm.
does not have the higher end talent that Russell Wilson had. He does not have the same physical traits. But what it is capable of is being late era Drew Brees, whose arm wasn't the strongest, who wasn't quite what he used to be, but like was able to facilitate the ball in a safe and effective manner to keep the ball moving downfield. And the
Yes.
last couple weeks where Bo has really begun to surge, that is it. He's never gonna. There are going to be exactly 4 throws a game where he throws past 10 yards. Otherwise, it is going to be dump, 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 slant, dump, 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 and then
Mm-hmm.
one little fade at the end. And on top of that, it is a like again the defense. It's such a glow up from giving up. The 70-point game against the Dolphins might be one of the most fraudulent results in history because this defense is good. It's not like they've really added anything. It's the same people, but
Yeah.
like Patrick Surtain might be the last like sort of superstar cornerback we have in the league with Sauce Gardner kind of underperforming this year.
Yeah, he's no Patrick Surtain was kind of like he was like the savior of that defense of like we should be in a conversation. Um, yeah, yeah, it's
Simple.
yeah, it's simple. All right. Next is the AFC South.
Yes, the AFC South. Where?
I guess I'll I guess I'll take care of
Well,
the
I'll read off
Cashbot
the teams
opinion.
real quick.
Yeah, take care of the teams.
Houston Texans are 7-4. Indianapolis Colts are 5-6. Tennessee Titans are 2-8, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are 2-9.
Yep. All right, I'll take care of the thing that people have heard for years now. The Texans are hot.
Yeah.
They're on the upper side of a rebuild. They keep picking like they showed enough potential last season to make them kind of desirable for people in contract negotiations, like Mixon, like Diggs.
Mm.
And I feel like it's kind of obvious. Also, the opposite, the inverse side of that point, who else are we going to talk about?
Right, it is kind of just like we can take the 2 minutes to talk about Houston and then literally just get our points out of the way. It is like, I don't know, it is interesting of like, I do feel like Houston's having, I guess not a step down because their record is better than it was at this point last year. Like, they are nominally better than they were last year. It just feels not as good because we expected them to take a gargantuan leap.
Yeah.
And it is that challenge of being ahead of your rebuild. You were not supposed to be here yet. This was supposed to be the year you go like 8-8 and like vibes are good and you have 1 or 2 high profile wins against good teams.
Yeah.
But no, you did really well last year. So now everything's accelerated. And you and there's a challenge to that because it's like, well, that's not always how progression works. If you surprise in 1 year, you're not necessarily going to surprise in a second year. And yet they're still finding ways to win. And my big thing is, as long as they keep finding ways to win and don't enforce any bad habits with CJ Stroud in terms of like putting on the cake too much or like being skittish around pressure, then it's a successful year. And you figure out the pieces, you figure out the more core pieces that like, well, think about the Lions who did it more methodically than this.
Yes.
Like you figure out all of those steps you missed along the way in the offseason. Where it's like, all right, let's go back and figure out the offensive line now. Huh?
They made a drastic jump. 2 years ago, before they drafted CJ Stroud, they were 3-13-1. Then, immediate following year, they're taking the division with 10-7. That's way too fast.
Yeah, and like
that's
not bad. It's great. It's awesome to exactly. It's better to do that than not do that.
They look too good too fast. So even though they were 10-7 last year, them being 7-4, people are like, "Oh God, they're bad again."
Yeah, and they aren't. It is just like this is closer to what they were supposed to be, slightly closer to what they were supposed to be. Yeah. But they're still winning because again, CJ Stroud really is that good, and you put a lot of chips forward. Like getting Diggs was a good idea for like, all right, we have we're a Super Bowl contender now, and it's like, well, you might not be, but that's okay because you'll be one next year once you build on a couple things. It's not the end of the world.
Get a couple bigger names as your offensive linemen. Maybe a little bit better in the defensive backfield here. Like, they just need enhancement. They need enhancement.
Even as a minor downer, I'm like, you guys are being way too down on this team. It's fine. Everything's fine. Again, we're playing with house money right now.
Yeah.
Like, as long as they show a step forward next year from this, which is already a pretty good step, I'm good. We're Gucci snakes.
And it doesn't have to be that they're like, oh, we're undefeated this year. We just need to show improvement, which at the rate they're going seems easy.
I agree. Especially once they get Collins back. My point...
He looked good.
Yeah. My point, I guess the Titans have some stuff. Like, I don't even know if I believe this point, because, like, the idea of this year was figure out what the identity of your team is and figure out if Will Levis is the guy. You've emphatically discovered that despite having talent, and I feel like Will Levis got a raw end of the deal because it's like you see him and it's like the mistakes he's making are fixable. It's not like it's not like Jameis Winston where he's just forcing it into terrible coverage or like he completely misread a defense. It's like, no, his mistakes are trying too hard. And it's like that's Josh Allen did that. You can fix that.
The effort's
but like
there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of he's not.
He goes silly mode.
Yeah, he gets a little silly. He gets overhyped. They need to. I think they need to work on his like mentality towards things.
But they're not going to because they've decided it's over. The problem is I don't think you've really established your identity outside of that because it's like, okay, I guess you have a good running game. You have a strong interior defense. Like the spine of your defense is strong. And I'm like, okay, so you have talent. Like this is not a complete salvage job. You just have to figure out what your identity is on top of that. Like what kind of team do you want to be? Like, you had Derrick Henry for so long serving as your de facto personality. Like, what is your personality now? Let's just skip ahead. Yeah. In terms of lowlights, well, it's funny. Your lowlight and my sleep are basically the same. So I'll just do my lowlight first.
Yeah.
Jacksonville is probably the most sour team in the league. Like, there are worse teams, no doubt. But, like, at least now with the Browns, they can be like, ding dong, the Witches has a torn Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
Like, their owner made a comment of like, oh, this is the most talented Jaguars team we've ever had. And it's like all of their talent has, why would you say that? Has grossly underperformed. Trevor Lawrence, who's most likely out for the season now.
I think just confirmed he's out for the season.
Yeah. Just an insane amount of regression from last year, where it's just like he doesn't seem to trust what's around him. He's skittish in the pocket. He's not really creating anymore. 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Travis Etienne, who's a guy I like, just really has not had his act together this year. Just really hasn't been seeing the lanes really well. One of their big additions was Gabe Davis, who unfortunately, like, again, he was never it's the same problem he had on the Bills, where it's like they need him to be a top 2 wide receiver, and he's just not a top 2 wide receiver. He's never really developed. He's capable of high-end plays, but he's not capable of high-end seasons.
He's a low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3. But
that's not what you paid way too much money for that.
Yeah.
Your combo, I mean, I'll be nice to Trayvon because he's actually been really solid. But, like, Josh Hines-Allen is underperformed. It's actually inconceivable how bad your pass defense is, considering you nominally have 2 pass rushers. And, yeah, really the only skill position guy who's actually played above expectations is Brian Thomas Jr., who I'd argue has been right alongside Harris, Neighbors, and Adunze. I'm like, man, how do we keep between him and Justin Jefferson, how do we keep misscouting lanky stretch wide receivers on the LSU teams?
I think he's one of those dudes who he is lost in the pool of the talent that he is currently
right.
Where he's not built like Malik Neighbors, built to be the star.
Right.
Marvin Harrison Jr. being the first first wide receiver pick, obviously going to have some momentum, and being on a team like the Cardinals, kind of built to be like, you're starting hot. But Thomas Jr. gets kind of lost in the weirdness that is the Jaguars, where it's
right.
And he's also
it's also funny.
He's not as significant of a name, in my opinion. So you kind of forget that it's like, oh, is this his like first year? Is he a rookie? Is he not a rookie?
Right. Well, the answer is he was on the same team as Malik Neighbors in college, which is literally what happened to Justin Jefferson. He was on the same team as Jamar Chase, and then everyone was just like, oh, well, Jamar Chase is obviously a star here. This other guy, they just have him run in a straight line. Like I had someone from LSU. I was listening to like a draft thing, and someone from LSU was like, "No, trust me, it's the exact same thing." Where they just didn't need Thomas to do anything, so like they didn't develop him as much. But like once he gets to the NFL, you guys all see how. Yeah, but other than that, it's been nothing but misery.
Yep.
And your low, I like how you worded this. It went from the most to at least exciting division.
Yeah, because if you recall, end of last season, we were hot on this, specifically me, where it was like that final game of the regular season is what determined the playoff picture entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the Colts and the Texans going game for game with each other, of like the first one to blow, like to lose when the other doesn't, is the one that gets kicked out of the, at the time it was considered just a wild card spot. And it gets, and then the Jaguars start going on this losing streak, so it's like, oh, they have potential to possibly get the division seat. And then you go from like, and then final week, Jaguars lose, and you have the Colts and Texans playing each other for the divisional seat. That was quality football. There's this like a big division story going on, and now it's like, all right, let's see here. Give me 1 second to go to the right tab. We have 7 wins, 5 wins, but there haven't been like the sexiest wins. 2 wins and 2 wins. And the Jaguars, who are that this is fighting for that divisional seat, are at the bottom of it all. And it's like, all right, this is fun. And now the Texans look clearly dominant over everyone else. The Colts have been having issues all season determining their quarterback picture. And you just kind of it gets so much more. It's not the NFC AFC West boring, but it is kind of like, all right, AFC South games are kind of off the docket for don't sleep on games, like those divisional games. When if they were playing, if it was any team that wasn't the Titans playing each other in a divisional game, it had a front runner chance of being my don't sleep on pick.
Yes. Well, I was going to say this leads right into my sleeper point. What a what a glam down from the opening game of the year. That first Colts Texans game was so goddamn exciting. Like, remember how exciting that was? Two young guys just slinging the ball around.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Richardson doing that stupid play where he's like pulling off his back foot and slings
Oh,
it
yeah.
70 yards. Like, it really felt like
It felt insane.
like it felt like this was the future of the league. These two playing against each other. And then Richardson gets benched. Stroud is doing okay with like the kind of injuries and inconsistency around him. Truly, just the wettest fart since.
Yeah, that's kind of agreed.
But yes, your don't sleep on point is the Colts have potential. I agree with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Side note: it looks like they're static on the Steelers Browns game. It looks atrocious. The weather is that insane.
Oh God, the weather pick. God dang it! I gotta pick up my mom tomorrow. Is it gonna be snowing?
It's in Cleveland. You're nowhere near Cleveland.
Yeah, but weather moves east, my man.
Yeah.
Read a science book, damn it.
Yeah, no, never gonna happen.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. So Colts look like they have potential. They're showing signs of being like. I mean, it's obviously what having potential. They show signs of being good. They're not. They're not really like a blundering mess, but they're not really like it's not like, oh my god, this is a top caliber team. It's kind of like the same picture of, it's like a little bit of like the Broncos mixed with the Bengals kind of energy, where it's just like you are one of those middle third teams, and not in a bad way, where you could have one huge turnaround and one of you can win. What season was I just looking at?
The season of the sticks.
The 20. I somehow scrolled up too far in the past of the Colts games, because I wanted to look at some of their earlier games this season, and I got into their 2022 season, and I was like, how did they open with the tie against the Texans without me realizing that? No, they've played upper caliber teams that they've and that's their losses. Like They lost 2 times to the Texans. I'm not really surprised. They lost to the Packers. Not really surprised. But they've beaten the Steelers. They've beaten the Bears. Beaten the Dolphins. So it's like they're kind of like that hovering. Yeah, they lost to the Bills. They lost to the Vikings. They beat the Jets pretty in a great game. So
I'm going to be honest. If Richardson played against the Bills probably lose that game. Like,
yeah,
if no other reason than he could just run. Also, I just saw that. Holy moly, it's snowing. But yeah, I agree with you because at the end of the day, like that last game against the Jets, where Richardson just looked so much better than he had been, it really like, and it just felt like the whole offense was different. And finally, it felt like Shane Steichen went, "Wait a minute, this quarterback is different than Joe Flacco. Eureka! I'll run a different offense."
yeah,
And I'm like, motherfucker, you had Jalen Hurts. Who, Richardson is, hey, what if Jalen Hurts was bigger and could throw farther? And otherwise all the same, arguably faster. Why are we not leading with that?
mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, we'll do bold predictions later, but if you were to tell me that like the Colts actually challenged the Texans for the division, I wouldn't be that shocked. Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, no, I feel like they can like put up a fight a little bit more than than expected, but it's not. They're not on game-changing difference making.
Agreed.
All right, now that we end the AFC South, we end with the AFC, and we're gonna stop there. Let Carter sew himself back together, and then next time we're gonna talk about the NFC.
All right, here I go.
We did this whole thing.
Ow.
In half.
Ow. Oh yeah, I was in blinding pain. Ow. Ow. And I did not sanitize this needle well enough. That is, I'm gonna need those Hollywood doctors to clean me up real nice after this. Ow.
So tune in next time, or hello from last time, because I'm gonna upload these at the same time. So we're gonna see how well these bits intertwine.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Ow.
I'm the left half of Carter. Thanks for watching Disney Desk.